Hi and welcome back. So today I'm going to go through how to use the DJI Neo properly. I'll go through the basic operations of the Neo, the features that it has, and how to get most out of using the drone with the app and with the controller. So at the very start we need to charge the batteries. So you've got a couple of different ways to do this. You can either connect a USB-C cable directly to the rear of the drone and that's going to charge the battery while it's in place. Or you can charge it using the charging hub, which will charge up to 3 batteries at once if you've got a 65-watt charger, or 2 batteries if you've got a 45-watt charger. If not, it'll just charge 1 battery singly. So to remove the battery from the Neo, you simply press down at the tab at the front of the battery and it slides out. And to insert the battery into the DJI Neo, you simply put it on the drone itself and then slide it forward until it clicks. If you're using the charging hub, you take the battery and you just simply slide it into one of the slots until that clicks. Now on the side of the battery charger, you'll see one slot which is for your USB-C cable. You'll see a power button, and you'll also see at the front you've got 3 sections of 4 lights. If you press the power button, that's going to cause the light to illuminate, and that's going to show you how much power each battery has. So let's go through the drone itself. So on the front of the drone, you've got a gimbal cover. So I would recommend keeping this on when the drone's not in use to protect the gimbal. But to remove it, you simply press down and pull away. And then to put it back, again, you press down slightly and then slide it over the gimbal and it locks into place. So the gimbal itself is just a single axle up and down. So that means the drone is going to crop in the image to try and make it as steady as it can as it flies. Another thing I would suggest you get for your Neo is a gimbal protector. Now this simply slips on to the front of the drone, but it gives you a few more millimeters clearance between the gimbal and the outer edge of the protector. So should the worst happen and the drone crashes into something, you've got a bit more space before that impacts onto the actual gimbal. Now, as for sensors, the drone only has 2 sensors at the bottom of the drone itself. There's no sensors on the side or the top or the rear. So when the drone is moving sideways, then you need to be careful it doesn't actually crash into anything because there's nothing there to detect any obstacles. So to power on the drone, you press the button once, press it again and hold, and then after a few seconds, the drone is going to power on. And similarly, to switch it off, you press it once, press it again and hold, and then the drone will power down after a few seconds. So on the drone itself, you can see 5 indicator lights. Now, the first 4 are to do with the battery level, and for every one that's lit up green, that's going to show you that there's 25% of a battery there. So if it's got 3 lights lit up, that's going to mean it's 75%. So the 5th light is a status indicator light, and that will either change to red or yellow if there's a problem with the drone, such as low battery. So the button at the top of the drone is the mode button, and with this you'll cycle through the different flight modes that are actually on the drone.
Circle, rocket, spotlight, direction track, follow, droney.
Now with the mode, which is the 6th one on here, which came up as direction track, that's actually the custom button, and that is split into 3 separate modes, being direction track, where the drone will go in front of you or to the side. It's boomerang, where it'll fly round you in an elliptical orbit, or it'll also do helix, where the drone will circle round you and then rise at the same time. Now if you're using a controller like the RC2 or the RCN3, to switch it on, then you need to do a similar thing as you did with the drone. You take the power button, you press it, and then you press it again, and then the controller is going to start up. And then to switch the controller off, you press the power button and then press it again. Now if you're using the RCN3, on the bottom of the controller are going to be the joysticks, so you need to take those out and screw them into the controller itself. You also need then to insert the smartphone into the top of the controller and then connect a USB-C cable from the controller through to your phone. Now there are a few things to remember when flying in automated modes. Firstly, that there's no sensors, so you need to be aware of your surroundings. It's no good flying in a circle if there's trees or bushes or anything like that which you can crash into. Similarly, if it's going out on a drone and there's anything behind it, there's no sensors to detect it and the drone's going to crash. Next is when you launch the drone, you need to make sure that the drone is actually facing you. So it needs to detect you. If it doesn't detect you, it's not going to take off, and your hand needs to be steady. Otherwise, you're going to get a message saying that the drone's in motion, and again, it's not going to take off. Also bear in mind wind conditions, because if it is too windy, once the drone leaves your hand, it's just going to fly off in all directions, and that could damage the drone. So to launch the drone, you need to have the drone in the palm of your hand, and then first press the mode button and select the mode that you want to use. And then with your arm outstretched and the drone facing you, press and hold the mode button again for 2 seconds, and then the drone's going to take off. And then to land the drone, you simply put your hand underneath it. The sensors are going to detect your hand, and the drone will slowly lower itself into your hand. If this doesn't happen the first time, remove your hand and then put it back, and then it should come down and land in your hand on the second attempt. Now, if you want to jump in straight in with the flight modes, the first one I would suggest you using is follow. Now with follow, the drone does exactly what it says. As you move away from the drone is going to follow you at a specified distance and height, keeping you in the center of the frame as you move along. If you change direction, the drone will carry on following you, but if you start to come towards the drone is not going to back away. It's only going to follow you as you move away from the drone. Now when you're using follow mode, I would suggest you have the drone as far away from you as possible and as high as possible. Now this is because the Neo will track you better if it's further away and higher. But not only that, because the drone is further away and higher and looking down at you, there's going to be less chance of the image being overexposed and areas being blown out. So you're going to get a better image overall if it is far away and high. And when it is following you, it can do speeds of up to 22 miles an hour. And should it lose you, it's just going to hover in place until you come back towards it, and then it'll track you again, and then you can carry on going. Now the next flight mode you got is droney. Now with the droney flight mode, the drone will move away from you, either flat or rising to a predefined level. And again, for me, I find that the further away it goes and the higher it goes, the better the overall shot. But again, you need to be careful if there's anything behind the drone that it could actually crash into. So then you've got spotlight. Now this is handy because you put the drone in one fixed location, and then the drone is going to track the subject wherever they move. So it's great for things like if you're out with the kids and they're playing in a park, you can have the drone up. There's no danger of the kids running into the drone because it's going to remain in a fixed position, just following them wherever they are. So if you're in spotlight mode and you want to use the photo option, then as you move around, the drone will still track you, but it'll only take a photograph when you stop. It allows you then to stay in the position you want the photograph to be taken in, and then providing then that you remain static for 3 seconds, the drone will take a photo. You can then move about again, stop for another 3 seconds, and it'll take another photo. So next comes circle. So as the name suggests, the drone is just going to circle around you in a clockwise direction. And as with the other flight modes, you need to make sure that you've got plenty of clearance because there's no side sensors on the Neo, and it could have a tendency to crash into anything which is within that radius of that orbit. Now with circle, you've only got 2 heights, this being flat, so it'll keep it at eye level, or low, where the drone will descend towards the ground and then circle you that way. But again, as I said, for droney, the higher the drone is better, so you're going to get better results if the drone is at eye level rather than being low, close to the ground. So when you use circle, the drone only does one complete orbit, and it starts and stops at the same location. This means that you want to start the drone either to the side of you or to the rear of you, so that you are completely in the shot as the drone goes round. If you start the drone in front of you, it's going to start there, have a nice shot at the back of you, and then stop directly in front of you, which is going to ruin your footage. So always make sure that the drone is at the end position when you start it, if that makes sense. Now the last of these 5 options is rocket. And with rocket, the drone will move from filming you directly up into the air to a predefined height. So like the other options, you need to make sure that you've got enough clearance above the drone to make sure that it doesn't crash. You've also got the option for the drone to rotate as it ascends, and then it'll carry on rotating as it descends. So as you know, if you've watched any of my other videos, I'm not sponsored. So if you do want to do the like and subscribe thing, that's great. Or there's also a link down below if you want to just buy me a coffee. That would be greatly appreciated as well. So under the custom menu, we've got 3 different options, as I said earlier. And the first of those is being direction track. So with direction track, it's important to bear in mind where the drone is in relation to you. So if the drone's in front of you, it's going to move away from you as you go towards the drone, and this is what is known as a dolly track. Now if the drone is to the left or the right of you, as you move forward, it will remain in that location and then track you from the side. But remember, there's no side sensors, so again, bear in mind any obstacles it could encounter as you're walking about. So with direction track, like follow, you need to make sure that the drone is far away from you and high, because that's going to give the drone the best chance to track you as you move forward. You also need to make sure that you're moving slowly and consistently, otherwise the drone will have a tendency to lose you, and if this happens, it's just going to hover in place until you go back in front of the drone, and then it'll start tracking you again. Now when you finish using direction track, if you just stand still, the drone will then come towards you. If you try and go towards it, it's just going to move further away. So the second of the three options is helix. And with helix, the drone will circle you as it did with orbit, but it'll also rise to a predefined height. It'll then start to descend, continuing to orbit around you. So the final one is boomerang. So with boomerang, the drone's going to do an elliptical orbit around you, but it'll rise and descend as it does the flight path. And again, you can set the duration anything from 4 to 20 meters, depending on your circumstances and clearance that you've got in the area. And to land the drone, you simply put your hand underneath it. If you are using the automated flight modes, the drone will automatically start the recording at the beginning of the flight and then end it at the end of the flight. Now you can also use all of these flight modes directly from the app, and for me that's a better option. Not only does it mean you can set the parameters for each individual flight, but it also means you've got the option to override the flight should the drone get into difficulty or you think it's going to crash by pressing the stop button in the middle of the screen. You can also initiate a landing by pressing the button on the left hand side of the screen, but you can launch the drone from wherever you want as long as you're still within the frame. So this means you could put the drone on the floor or on a fence post or on a rock, and then it'll take off from that and then come back to the same location, and then you would land it either using your hand or by using the button on the left hand side, which will land the drone automatically. But when you're using the app, the drone will also create the flight logs. So should the worst happen, then you get a flyaway or some sort of incident, then you've got logs there to go back to DJI with to show what happened. You don't get logs created if you're just using the modes directly on the drone. If you don't want to use the predefined flight modes, then you can always use manual control to control the Neo. Now with manual control via the app, it'll give you two virtual joysticks within the app, and these will allow you to move the drone around as if you were using a regular controller. Bear in mind, if you are flying in manual mode, you are going to be limited to the distance the drone can move away from you because it's flying on Wi-Fi. Now this can be problematic if you're in a location where the drone is going to be difficult to get to, like say you are near a body of water or it's over some trees, because you're going to have to try and get closer to the drone to initiate that connection again to try and get the drone back. Should it lose the signal, the drone is just going to then hover in place until it either gets a new signal or it runs out of power. So this means if it is over a body of water or above some trees, it's just going to land and it's going to make the drone impossible to recover. Now, unlike the automated recordings, if you're flying in manual, you do need to start and stop the recording yourself, as the drone doesn't do it automatically. Now, in addition to using the app or the controller to control the drone, you can also use voice commands, but the drone still has to be connected through to the app. So to do this, you simply press the waveform icon on the right, and then this will change to green, and then you can use voice commands to tell the drone which flight maneuvers you want it to perform. And it also understands the flight mode commands like rocket and droney, or a distance like 6-meter rocket. Now on the app itself, you must have the wake up option selected, and then you use the words "Hey Fly" to initiate the flight mode. So you would use something like "Hey Fly," the drone would reply to you, and then you say "Take off," or "Hey Fly, 6-meter droney." Now, even if you are using voice commands, the drone is still going to have to be able to detect you before it actually does any of the takeoffs. Now, one of the new features you got on the Neo is the ability to record audio, which will make it great for vlogging. So on the right hand side of the screen, you'll see there's a microphone. You need to press this to activate the audio recording, and then all sound is going to be recorded via your phone. So this now is the 10-meter droney. Now if you own things like the DJI Mic 2, you can also connect that through to your phone, and then the audio will be synced from that to your phone and then onto the footage. And the Neo will also cancel out the propeller noise of the drone itself to make your audio more clear. And then once you've completed your footage, you simply go into the app, download the files, and then the drone will have synced the audio and the footage together into one file ready on your phone. Now when it comes to the video options, the Neo is quite limited. It only gives you the option of 4K or 1080p, and really you always want to film in 4K. If you want to do any slow motion, you can still film in 4K at 30 frames a second and reduce that down in post to 24 frames a second, which will give you a reduction of 20%. You could also film in 1080p at 60 frames a second and reduce this down to 30 frames a second in post, but the quality is going to suffer. Now the Neo only has internal memory, so there are a number of ways you can get the files from the Neo onto your computer or phone. The first one is via the app, where you just connect through to the app, select the files you want to download, and they will download directly through to your phone. The second being connecting your Neo through to your computer or iPad via a USB-C cable, and then you can download the files directly from the Neo onto your device. If you use this, the Neo doesn't have to be powered on, you just need to connect it through with the cable. Now if you're using the controller, you can press the three dots on the top right and that'll take you into more in-depth settings. So I've done a separate video on that on how to shoot more cinematic footage using the Neo, and I'll put a link below. But there are a few things you should change immediately to improve your footage, and that is the style. So you need to go into settings and then camera and then scroll down to where it says style. And then from the style, you need to set the sharpness to -2 and the noise to -1, and that will greatly enhance your footage. Now on the bottom right of the controller, you'll also see the auto and pro modes. Now this will give you an option to change things such as the ISO, the shutter speed, and the exposure and compensation value. Now the most important thing you could change here is the exposure compensation value. And I would change that down to -3 or -0.7, so it'll stop the footage being blown out, because the Neo does have a tendency to overexpose its footage. Now if you're using the controller, you can also access the flight modes via the quick shot menu, and that'll give you the same flight modes as if you were doing it directly on the app. Now one thing you do get with the app, which you don't get via the flight modes, is the ability to track a subject. Now these are active track, spotlight, and point of interest. So to use any of these three, you simply use your finger and draw a square around whatever object you want to track. Now spotlight is the same as it was on the app itself, where the drone remains in a static location and then just films the object as it moves around. With point of interest, you can have the drone rotate around a fixed point, either clockwise or anti-clockwise, and you can also control the speed. So it gives you a nice orbit around whatever it is you want to track. Now active track will track the object as it moves, but it also gives you the ability for you to move the drone in relation to the object itself. So for example, if you're following something from behind, you can then move the drone further to the left or to the right or above it, and it'll keep that subject within the center of the frame. Okay, so that covers the basic use of the Neo. I have done a few other videos from how to find your drone if it does a flyaway, and also how to use it to get more cinematic footage, and just taking it for a day out hiking using the drone and the app itself with no controller. Anyway, all that remains for me to say is, if you did find it useful, if you do the thumbs up and the subscribe, and if you feel like buying me a coffee, there's a link in the description below. If you've got any questions, let me know and I'll do my best to answer them, and I'll catch you again next time. Thanks very much.